I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the manipulation angle. I know that you're a member of GATA. I'm a big believer in GATA's story that the gold market is manipulated. The fact that gold is hitting all-time highs right after a spring correction that we had this year, is that proof that maybe the gold cartel is running out of ammo?
I think the gold cartel is indeed running out of ammo. And there's only so much physical gold and physical silver in the world. And, that's the thing that's going to cause the gold cartel to eventually collapse. In years past, we would call it by going off the gold standard or closing the gold window. It's the same thing today. We just use different terminology as to when the gold cartel finally is going to collapse. That's the closing of the gold window for all practical purposes. But, again, Gabriel, you can't predict these things. All you can do is, take steps to protect yourself and follow the trends and, continue to evaluate whether gold and silver are still useful to you and whether they're still good value. So, yes, the gold cartel is probably on the ropes. Whether it lasts another 6 months or 6 years, nobody can predict. But, it will eventually collapse because that's the history of what happens with paper money. Paper money ultimately collapses. There's no paper money that's ever survived for one reason. When governments have control of the money supply, they issue too much of it. That's what's happened to the dollar. And when they issue too much of it, ultimately the currency is debased and destroyed and no longer accepted by the general society as currency anymore. And then you move on to something else. If you get stuck holding that worthless paper, you're going to end up losing a lot of your wealth.
I also think that, like you, that it's investor demand that's going to light the fuse of the gold market. It will overwhelm the paper market. 58% of gold demand last year went to India and China alone, which is pretty staggering. You can walk into a bank in China, you can buy gold and silver. The Chinese government is urging their citizens to buy gold. This is in stark contrast to what, we get over here from our government, the propaganda we get from the media over here, that, gold is a barbarous relic, it's not worth owning. Isn't it a bit ironic that the communist Chinese are the ones who might liberate the gold market?
Yeah, I lived in Asia for most of the 1970s, and one of the things that struck me then when I was there is that, gold, it's part of the culture and tradition throughout Asia. If you would say to anybody in Asia that gold isn't money, they would think you landed from Mars or something like that, because to them gold is money. In fact, the Chinese character for gold is the same as the Chinese character for money. What happens with gold, and I don't look at these annual supply demand statistics because gold doesn't get produced and disappear like industrial or all other commodities do. Gold gets produced and accumulated. So gold mined by the Romans 2,000 years ago is identical to gold mined yesterday in Nevada. So the supply of gold is this 164,000 metric tons in the above ground stock. And what's added every year is inconsequential. What happens to this above ground stock, and more specifically, what happens to gold? Gold goes to where the wealth is being created. What's happening in China and places in Asia now, a lot of wealth is being created there. So you saw, earlier this decade, European central banks selling their gold, and it was being bought by China and other places in Asia. It's also being bought by individuals. And, what's happening in Asia is truly a remarkable event. You've got, literally billions of people coming out from a defunct communist system entering the capitalist system. And Chinese are, hardworking, focused on education, want to raise their standards of living, and they're doing that through hard work and wealth creation. And as they accumulate more wealth, inevitably more and more of their wealth is going to go into gold. And that's going to create a big factor as to what's going to happen in the price of gold in the future relative to all national currencies of the world.
Today, Barrick announced record quarterly earnings for the quarter of $1.2 billion. Yesterday, we had Goldcorp came out with their earnings for the quarter, and they announced that they doubled from last year to $420 million. Agnico Eagle just announced a $70 million investment in Rubicon Minerals, which gives it a 9.2% stake in Rubicon. Barrick alone has to find 8 million ounces a year to replace reserves just for last year, which is pretty staggering. Do you think that as the seniors become more cashed up, they'll look to the juniors as takeover targets to replace those reserves?
Yeah, I don't follow the gold stocks that closely anymore, but, listening to some of the pros out there who are managing, gold stock portfolios, that seems to be a common theme.
I actually believe the juniors will probably do the best when it's all said and done during the bubble phase, the blow-off top phase at the end. I know they did, the juniors did probably the best during the 1970s if you pick the right one. Do you think we'll see those type of valuations for the junior market during the blow-off top phase?
The key words are what you said, if you pick the right one. My recommendation is always, if you're going to get into a portfolio of gold mining stocks, have about 30 of them, because that statistically gives you good diversification. And some of those are going to be losers, some are going to do all right, some will do okay, and one or two might be exceptional, and that'll give you good results. So don't put all your money on just one or two stocks. Get a diversified portfolio. And if you don't have the financial resources to do that, my recommendation is to invest with a fund manager who has a good track record, and you get the benefit of the diversification that he puts together through the fund that he runs.
GATA has a conference coming up in London, Gold Rush 2011, at the Savoy Hotel, August 4th to 6th, where you will be a featured speaker. Maybe you could clue us in as to what it's all about.
Well, GATA, this is GATA's fourth conference, and I'm honored to have been invited to the previous three, and now we'll be speaking at the fourth one. But GATA, I can't speak for it because I'm not on the board of directors or anything like that. But what GATA has made clear is that their objective is to provide educational information about gold and the gold market, and they aim for the gold market to be free of government intervention. So this conference will be yet another one, which is I think GATA has been very, very successful in achieving that aim and bringing attention to the gold market. I think this conference will be an important one in terms of GATA's effort to achieve its objectives.
I agree. I love the idea and concept behind Gold Money. Tell us what goldmoney.com is all about.
Yeah, it's really very simple. It's a very economical, convenient, and most importantly, safe way to buy and sell gold and silver. The convenience of using the internet is something that gold and silver buyers didn't have until recently. And one of the factors that we have is that we're a European-based company, and we offer storage in different vaults: London, Zurich, and Hong Kong. So while you may want to have some gold and silver stored in your house and maybe buried in your backyard, you also want to have some geographic and political diversification for your gold and silver, and that's what we offer through Gold Money by enabling you to store in different vaults around the world. We're presently storing about $2 billion of precious metals, owned by 19,000 customers in 87 different countries around the world.
James Turk, goldmoney.com. Thank you for being on goldfiend.com.
Thank you, Gabriel. It's a pleasure speaking with you.